Ukraine offers fierce resistance. WION brings you all sides of the story.
I'm the reserve officer of Ukraine. Many people in the country are not even really aware of what's going on.
Ukrainians are not happy.
Leading voices come together on WION.
He was deceived by his own propaganda.
I am not leaving, I'm not surrendering.
We need that no-fly zone to have the Russian Air Force.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Simon Marks from Washington, and these are the top headlines of the day. Ukraine accuses Russia of violating a humanitarian corridor aimed at enabling civilians to leave the beleaguered southern port city of Mariupol. Attacks on hospitals, ambulances and other healthcare facilities in Ukraine have increased rapidly in recent days, and the country is running short of vital medical supplies, according to the World Health Organization. "130 Belgian soldiers board a plane from Brussels military airport bound for Romania as part of NATO's rapid reaction force responding to the war in Ukraine." India says it has been able to move out all Indian students from Sumy in Ukraine. The students are en route to Poltava, from where they will board trains to western Ukraine. Russia warns oil prices could more than double to $300 a barrel, and it's threatening to close the main gas pipeline to Germany if the West halts oil imports. And German sportswear group Adidas is temporarily closing its stores in Russia and its online shop, joining a growing list of companies that are suspending their activities following the invasion of Ukraine. The President of the United States is under fire today over reports indicating that he may be planning a visit to Saudi Arabia. The political website Axios and other news organizations here report that senior White House officials are mulling a presidential trip to Saudi Arabia in the spring in an effort to find additional sources of oil for the West as Russian sanctions intensify. Although the White House says no plans are yet formalized, Biden's press secretary confirmed that an official U.S. delegation had visited Saudi Arabia last month.
As it relates to Saudi Arabia, we did talk a few weeks ago about how Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein went to Saudi Arabia to discuss a range of issues, including the war in Yemen, including security in the region, and certainly including energy security.
West Asia is a region that is considered a top priority for all U.S. presidents. When Biden entered the White House last year, one of his main priorities was recalibrating the Saudi relationship that had been sidelined by the murder of Saudi American journalist Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and the role Western intelligence agencies claim that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman played in orchestrating that killing. Warm ties between the United States and Saudi Arabia under successive presidents, including Donald Trump, rapidly atrophied. When Biden was sworn in, he insisted he wanted no contact personally with the Crown Prince. He released declassified intelligence reports on the killing of Khashoggi and documents looking into Saudi Arabia's connection to the al-Qaeda attacks of September the 11th, 2001. When Biden was asked about rising gas prices in February, he indicated no interest in turning to the kingdom for help, saying, "There's a lot of Middle Eastern folks who want to talk to me. I'm not sure I'm going to talk to them." On the campaign trail, Biden said he would maintain America's policy after the Khashoggi killing of treating the Crown Prince as a global pariah, but much has changed since then. US inflation is at a 40-year high, midterm elections are looming, and Russia has, of course, plunged the world into what could be its biggest energy crisis for decades. The White House calls reports of a presidential visit to Riyadh premature speculation. But the Ukraine crisis has left the United States seeking to shore up global oil supplies from wherever possible. It's unclear whether the Saudis want to assist President Biden. Last week, the Crown Prince was asked if he's misunderstood by the Biden administration. "I do not care," he said, adding, "We don't have the right to lecture you in America. The same goes the other way." But the fact is, the rise in oil prices doesn't just benefit Russia, it also helps Saudi Arabia. Riyadh controls 55% of the world's crude oil supply. At the current rate, Riyadh is projected to earn over $375 billion from oil this year alone, a nearly 150% increase over last year. So President Biden has an uphill task ahead of him if he wants to convince Saudi Arabia to boost oil production. In return, Riyadh could lobby for more defense deals with the United States and an end to US criticism of Saudi Arabia's military involvement in Yemen. Joining me now live from New York, our correspondent Susan Tehrani. Susan, let's talk about this possible trip to Saudi Arabia by President Biden. The White House calling all of this premature speculation. Where do we understand that things actually stand?
So as you mentioned, this is a report that came out by Axios, and the Biden administration has been signaling this bizarre oil diplomacy. I mean, the Saudi Arabia trip, will have to wait to see where it comes in terms of confirmation. But this outsourcing of oil and this bizarre oil diplomacy to turn into countries like Venezuela, for example, which the administration does have a delegation in, or turn to OPEC countries to somewhat beg them for oil, or wait for a deal with Iran, when members of the own Biden administration and Republicans are saying that if you just open pipelines here in the United States and turn to shale producers, a lot faster there will be oil for the United States, and production and the revenues will go into American pockets than to sort of go around and, fill the pockets of dictators. So I think a lot of the frustration and criticism that we're seeing right now, at least here in the United States, comes from that. And sort of it culminated with this report from Axios about this possible trip to Saudi Arabia regarding how much more are we going to outsource under the guise of reducing our carbon emission, where, the carbons are being emitted outside of the United States. We're keeping to clean energy, when frankly right now this economy cannot run on anything but fossil fuel, at least for the next several years. And then here we stand right now. So I think a lot of it has to do with that aspect of it, and his policies at the very beginning on being very tight on fossil fuel and energy. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not he takes this trip. Yes, it was a campaign promise, like many others, that if he does go ahead and talk with the Saudis and the Saudis do receive him, it's going to be a campaign promise that he didn't deliver on. But here we are with geopolitics once again, and America preferring, as it has before, to perhaps maybe sort of put human rights in the back burner for now.
And Susan, while we've been talking, one bit of breaking news here in Washington, we are hearing that President Biden may ban Russian imports of oil into the United States within the next few hours. Those reports coming from prominent Democrats on Capitol Hill who say they expect an announcement here today. But let's go back to this issue of a possible presidential trip to Saudi Arabia. I mean, you talked there about human rights potentially getting sidelined as a result of that. But the blowback for President Biden of travelling to Riyadh and meeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman would be one of fury, would it not, from the human rights campaign, from human rights campaigners here in the United States, and from a foreign policy elite that was absolutely stunned by the killing of Jamal Khashoggi.
It's not a win-win strategy. I mean, he can't win in this scenario right now. One, because again, this is what this administration and the Obama administration and Democrats seem to do this a lot, and not to point fingers at them, but they keep drawing these red lines that they pass themselves, and they get themselves into these hot waters. So yes, exactly. The Khashoggi case was something that raised worldwide condemnation, and the previous administration was chastised and criticized time and again for engaging with Saudi Arabia, even if it was limited. And here he is, President Biden, he's going to be seen like being a hypocrite on the issue on the one hand, and on the other hand, we're not going to know whether or not, Saudi Arabia, it does seem like it does have the capacity and the supply to make up for Russian oil on the international market, but whether or not it's able to do that, and whether or not it wants to release its oil, because on the other hand, it's an OPEC member country, it doesn't want to drive down the prices right now, it's benefiting. So, the scenario, maybe President Biden does make this trip. Bin Salman doesn't get what he wants from Bin Salman, and then he also has, the criticism to be faced with. Just regarding that breaking news, I do want to say that the Democrats really needed to do this for a political win. Banning Russian oil in the United States may be a lot more political than practical. The United States does import Russian oil, but it doesn't make up that much, and less than 10% of what we're importing here in the United States. For it to have an effect on the Russian economy, it would have to be with its partners around the world. So we'll have to wait to see how that works out in the next few hours.
Susan Tehrani, live for us on the streets of New York City. Thanks very much indeed for being there again today. And let's tell you more about that breaking news that President Biden is indeed poised to ban Russian oil imports into the United States. This would be a move that the United States will be taking on its own, it seems, without European support. But it's US lawmakers who have really driven those moves from Capitol Hill. And we've got more details of that in our next report.
In a move to further punish Russia for its invasion of Ukraine, the United States is considering a ban on Russian oil imports without the participation of allies in Europe. Two people familiar with the matter told Reuters Monday. The White House is said to be negotiating with U.S. congressional leaders who are working on fast-tracking legislation, though White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said there's no decision yet.
Well, no decision has been made at this point by the president about a ban on importing oil from Russia. And those discussions are ongoing internally and also with our counterparts and partners in Europe and around the world.
President Joe Biden Monday tried to press his case in a video conference call with the leaders of France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. But Germany, the biggest buyer of Russian crude oil, has so far rejected pressure for a ban. The United States, which has imposed a host of painful sanctions against the Russian economy, President Vladimir Putin, and many Russian billionaires since the invasion began, has stopped short of targeting Russia's oil and gas, worried it could drive energy prices even higher. Oil prices have soared to levels not seen since 2008, and Americans are getting sticker shock at the pump. But some don't mind if it means condemning Russia.
As far as I'm concerned, we should raise the gas price, stop importing oil from Russia and put the hurt on them. It's going to make inflation go up even higher, but we got to do what we got to do.
Meanwhile, Axios reported that President Biden might make a trip to Saudi Arabia, as the United States seeks to get Riyadh to increase energy production. A White House official didn't deny the report, but said it was premature speculation and that nothing was planned yet.
And a bit more on the breaking news that President Biden may be very close to announcing that ban on Russian oil imports. We've just been told by the White House that he will be speaking to the press in 2 hours' time at the Roosevelt Room to announce actions to continue to hold Russia accountable for its unprovoked and unjustified war on Ukraine, which sounds very much like the president is planning to ban those Russian oil imports into the United States. Russia is threatening to close its main gas pipeline to Germany via Nord Stream 1 in retaliation for the halt on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project. Russia also warned that rejecting Russian oil would have catastrophic consequences, causing prices to more than double to $300 a barrel. The threat came as the United States was exploring that possibility of a ban as another way to punish Russia for invading Ukraine. President Biden spoke yesterday to the leaders of France, Germany and Britain as he pushed for their support on the issue. But Germany and the Netherlands have already rejected a plan to ban Russian oil. The European Union gets about 40% of its gas and 30% of its oil from Russia and has no easy substitutes if supplies are disrupted. Russia is the world's top producer of natural gas and the second top producer of crude oil. And any move to sanction its energy industry will, of course, badly damage not just its own economy, but also the global economy. The shudders will be felt around the world. Fears of a possible embargo drove Brent crude oil to a price of nearly $140 a barrel at one point on Monday. That's its highest level for almost 14 years. Reports suggest the US might be willing to move ahead and now looks set to move ahead without its Western allies. The US only gets about 3% of its oil from Russia. The White House said that it is in conversation with large oil producers and suppliers around the world about how to mitigate the impact of a ban. WION's correspondent in Brussels, Rosie Burchard, has sent us this report.
The EU gets about 40% of its gas imports from Russia and about 25 to 30% in terms of crude oil. So there's definitely concerns about this, and that is why the European Commission, that's the bloc's executive, is today about to present a plan on how to kind of get rid of this dependence on Russia for energy. Some of those plans include diversifying energy supplies. We know the EU has been in talks over the past few weeks and even months with countries including Qatar and Norway and Nigeria about diversifying those energy supplies. But they're also looking into really ramping up renewable production, although that, of course, is a bit more of a long-term project. There are divisions among the bloc in terms of how to proceed with this potential really tough sanction of a full embargo on Russian oil and gas. We heard from the Lithuanian foreign minister yesterday, Gabrielius Landsbergis, that he said essentially buying Russian oil and gas.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging foreigners to support his country, asking foreign soldiers to fight side by side with Ukrainians against the Russians. A total of 16,000 foreigners have already volunteered to fight, undeterred by the Russian assault. A lot of these foreign fighters argue that Ukraine offers them purpose, camaraderie and a cause to fight.
Train station, go to the safe zone.
Michael Furcall says he is a former U.S. Army engineer who was in Rome studying archaeology when he heard Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's appeal for foreign fighters. Within days, Furcall was at the train station in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, boarding a train to Kyiv, hoping to volunteer as a medic.
I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, but at the same time, like, it's not about me, it's about the people that are suffering there. So when you see the images, you see the people that are here right now, you understand that you're not suffering, it's more about them.
Ukraine has established an international legion for volunteers from abroad, and Zelensky has publicly urged foreigners to fight side by side with Ukrainians. Some of the foreign fighters say they are attracted by the cause, to halt what they view as an unprovoked attack in a once-in-a-generation showdown between the forces of democracy and dictatorship, even if it may have been a tough sell for their families back home.
They're not happy, to say the least. Definitely not happy, but they're proud.
A man who identified himself only as Jax was among a group of British fighters headed to Kyiv. They were led by Ben Grant, who had just completed a month-long stint as a security advisor in Iraq. Grant was unclear whether his men would be deployed independently or as part of a Ukrainian unit.
We're going to wait, to be honest, and see what the situation is as we get further in.
Another man who said he was a former British soldier and Afghanistan veteran, who calls himself Kruger, warned that even those who have previously seen fighting might struggle in Ukraine's war zones.
If you're out here as a war tourist, it's not the place for you. I think the realities of war, if you head out to the front, is going to be pretty overwhelming.
Although it is unclear how many foreign fighters had arrived in Ukraine, President Zelensky said last week that more than 16,000 foreigners had volunteered.
Lots going on in relationship to Ukraine today, and of course you'll want to stay with WION for full updates on all of that. But there are other things taking place around the world, and we thought that finally today we would end with the countdown getting underway for Hollywood's biggest night, the Oscars. With the Academy Awards just 20 days away, this year's recognised talent gathered in Los Angeles for the 2022 Oscar Nominees Luncheon. We're going to leave you with a bit of glitz. I'm Simon Marks, back with another edition of WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Thanks for watching WION World is One.
India's